winter solstice to everyone. Welcome down to Stony Point. It is a super windy, chilly day down here. And we have Flippy behind the camera. My name is Jax. I'm going to be your naturalist down here today. We've decided we want to be down at Jacuzzi. And a very happy belated birthday to Moonbeam Smith. We couldn't get you a cupcake, but we do have a virtual card for you. Let's get the day started. Let's go have a look at our weather conditions. You can see we've got lots of clouds behind me now. You can see it's super overcast today. The weather forecast doesn't say rain, but it looks very threatening. And today in the Southern Hemisphere at 11:13 a.m. we were the furthest we could have possibly been from the sun. And I can feel that in the temperature. Let's go have a look at the weather forecast and see what they say about our chilly conditions. And I think all the animals are hoping for a little bit of sun. So we're going to go have a look at the seashore, and you'll see that all the penguins are laying down. They've got their flippers very close to their bodies. Not all, you've always got to have the oddballs out, but most of them are really epitomizing why their scientific name refers to them looking like a diving wedge. They look like tuxedoed wedges at the moment, and they're trying to conserve some body heat. And we had a couple of unanswered questions about crabs yesterday that we're going to get to later on in our show. Thank you so much for spending time with us on the rocky shores. We'll do a bit of crab anatomy and talk about those questions just a bit later on. And for now, we're looking at our very sleepy looking penguins. But if you would like to send us in some questions or comments, you can do that by using the hashtag WildEarth on Twitter. You could comment on our YouTube link. You can also submit your questions on our channels page by registering. And kids email us at kidsquestions@wildearth.tv so we can continue our lovely chats. And this penguin is preening its chest, but it looks like it's trying to keep its head as close to the body as possible. My favorite comment was from Moonbeam Smith yesterday, where Moonbeam Smith said I was in scuba gear because I had laundry day.
And coming up in first place and officially named Bilo is Heart's Cub.
We're looking at some penguin yoga. So dark vein lover, I think we're going to have some very sleepy characters on Penguin Beach today. We do have some other bird species about on the seashore. I see some kelp gulls who are also trying to keep warm, and we also have a little crowned cormorant. There's also either a bank or a Cape cormorant. It's hiding its head on the seashore, so all the birds are just relaxing, keeping warm. They have no reason to be flittering about. So I'm a bit confused about that bird that we're seeing now. I'm not sure that bird is all too well. That is a bank cormorant. So I'm not sure why he's hanging out here. It's a bit unusual for them. So we're just going to keep our eyes on that bank cormorant and just see if he does stand up and show us his wings, if he's okay, and if he's not, then we're going to just let Gavin from Sandkop know. You can see he's got some fluff on his beak from, or not fluff, but feather, from doing some preening. He really looks a little bit miserable. But we've just had a touch of sun come out. Venus Smith, so that's a really good question. You're asking if they're all facing the same way because of the wind. And the wind is actually blowing directly towards where Flippy and I are. So the birds are directly in front of us, and so the wind is hitting them all side on. I think they're facing that way because the sun is going to be hitting their backs quite directly if it does decide to come out. So it's interesting, we don't really see them, or I've not really noticed them turning their bodies in the direction away from the wind, but they certainly do it with the sun. And you'll notice that for the most part we see the cormorant is in a protected spot, so he doesn't have any wind blowing on his into his face. He's hiding behind the rock. But most of the birds lay in the same direction. And Kimberly, cormorants are found in mostly coastal environments, but in South Africa we do have two different cormorant species that are found inland. So we have the reed cormorant and we have the white-breasted cormorant that also occurs here. And both of those species can be found inland next to little dams, little lakes by rivers. So you can see them up at Djuma. You see them in Kruger. But many of your cormorants around the world and your shags are marine based, so you get lots of cormorants that live on islands. And we've just had another cormorant land, so there's now two crowned cormorants on the seashore, and you can see the crowned is a lot smaller than the bank. So the bank cormorant is the heaviest cormorant that we have here. The crowned cormorant is the smallest cormorant, and they've got the beautiful orange bits on the face and the red eye. And I feel sorry for these cormorants when they fish in this weather, because it's going to be really hard for them to warm up their bodies. So cormorants, the different cormorant species that we don't eat them, the different cormorants that we see, sorry Penguin Beaches, what I meant to say is they eat different things. So the crown cormorant that we were looking at, we often see them hunting for clipfish and other little small reef fish in the intertidal zone. Your bank cormorants really like to eat lobsters, and lobsters are crustaceans, and they're quite early crustaceans, as I was discovering this morning when reading about crabs, but we'll talk about that later on. Your Cape cormorants like sardine and anchovy, so they like schooling fish, that's their favorite. And then the white-breasted cormorant also eats mostly reef fish. So the two crowned cormorants are sitting almost together now, and the one is trying to dry out his, his wings in the wind, and you can see he's really catching that wind. He's also kind of tilted to the side of the wind.
We know that there's nothing worse than just as your favorite leopard is about to catch his first meal in 3 days, you are on the edge of your seat and up pops an advert. But we want to let you know that we hear you. You can watch WildEarth without the ads. Sign up to be an explorer and watch the channel on the WildEarth website completely ad-free. Head over to our Explorer page to find out more.
We had 2 unanswered questions yesterday that we'll get to in a moment. Bianca, cormorants adapt to the wind quite well. I was just mentioning that I find that Cape cormorants and white-breasted cormorants actually love soaring in the wind. You'll often see them, you know, if you're in a high spot, you'll see that they'll catch some wind and just fly about, and I think they're just enjoying themselves because they're not catching anything when they do so. And Cape cormorants are actually extremely strong flyers. At sea, I would sometimes work in conditions like the conditions we have today where the wind is really gusting, and if you saw the Cape cormorants out, they would keep up with you on the boat, resisting the wind. And so their bodies are adapted to handle these sorts of conditions really well, because this is their home, this is what they're used to. When they're sitting on the rocks, I think it's a little bit more troublesome, especially if they want to dry their wings, because as they lift their wings, it catches a bit of lift. But we had some unanswered questions yesterday, since we're on the topic of questions, and we had 2 very cool ones. So the one was crabs and if they could be in salinity. And Lola, cormorants are seen all year round here. So cormorants here are not known to be migratory, although Cape cormorants sometimes have a slight migration. But for the most part, you can see all 4 cormorant species here throughout the year. And I'm going to go from cormorants to crabs quickly before I forget to answer those questions. And the one was about whether crabs could live in salt and fresh water. And in South Africa, things like the mud crabs and the mangrove crabs deal with both conditions. The other question that I really enjoyed was, how do crabs find a mate? And the answer is actually using pheromones, so it's smell. So a male crab will sometimes distribute his pheromones, and then the females will find him. Sometimes it's the females who will release a smell, and then they'll decide if they want to mate with the male or female crab. And then what usually happens is that the females will attach to the males, and it's called cradle carrying. So the males will actually carry the females, they'll be below, and the females will then let the males sort of insert their reproductive organs into the female, and the males will deposit sperm, and then the females will carry that sperm until they want to fertilize the eggs. So a very interesting story, and some of these crabs do a mass spawning event, and other crabs will spawn at different times, and it's not such a big event. But most crabs will spawn when they molt. So we were talking about crabs yesterday, and they do go through these molts as they grow, so that they can change, they can sort of, you know, grow bigger. And most crabs will mate when they molt because that's the only time where their shell is really soft enough to enable them to do so. And crabs, I realized, are quite romantic because apparently sometimes after they mate, the male will still carry around the female and wait for her shell to harden before he lets her go. And crabs can sometimes have a really beautiful love story, it seems. And I was telling Flippy this morning when he arrived, and Flippy says that, because we were talking about humans, because humans and our attraction is also largely based on pheromones, so it's what we smell often more than what we see, although we don't realize it. And he was telling me that he had students and they would do this study where people weren't allowed to shower for 3 days, they weren't allowed to put on any deodorant, they just had to wear a t-shirt for 3 days, and then what they would do is they would have to identify who wore the t-shirt and how attractive they were, so whether they were male or female and how attractive they found the person. And there was about a 70% accuracy rate with just smell identification. So super interesting.
We know that there's nothing worse than just as your favorite leopard is about to catch his first meal in 3 days, you are on the edge of your seat and up pops an advert. But as you know, a life without advertising would mean a very boring evening when you arrive home from work. Because WildEarth and most other media companies rely on advertising in order to fund our content. But we want to let you know that we hear you. And to show you how much we care about your experience in nature, you can watch WildEarth without the ads. Sign up to be an explorer and watch the channel on the WildEarth website completely ad-free. Head over to our Explorer page to find out more. WildEarth Explorers, it's in your nature.
So Penguin Beaches, it's time for us to do some crab anatomy and look at the bodies of these crabs. So we're going to zoom in nicely on the page. And I mentioned earlier on that lobsters came before crabs. So crabs used to have nice long tails, but they lost those tails because they figured it was easier to swim away from predators and crawl into crevices. And I found out some really cool things about crabs. And the one thing is that you can actually tell which crab is a male and which crab is a female. So if you turn a crab over and they have a really narrow sort of middle bit, which you can see there, then that is a male crab. And if they've got a really wide section, then that is a female crab. So I'd say that this crab in the diagram is likely to be a male crab. And I also found out the different stages of a crab's life. So I drew them for you because I didn't have a diagram. So they go from being an egg, and then they become what we call a zoea, which is a very funny little creature. You can see why I'm a guide and not an artist by my drawing. And then they go to what looks a little bit more like a crab, which is a megalopa. And then eventually they become a juvenile crab. And in their last molt, they will eventually become the crab that we see in these photos. And these are all true crabs, so hermit crabs and porcelain crabs and coconut crabs, none of which we really get here in abundance, are not true crabs. They fall into a different family. But true crabs have 10 legs. They are decapods. The last set of legs become modified as pincers to grasp things. And some crabs, like swimming crabs, still have their back legs to be able to propel them through the water, which I thought was very cool. And we do get some swimming crabs in this area. But I hope that you've enjoyed having a look at the anatomy of the crab and seeing all the different bits and bobs that make up these really interesting creatures. Apparently this body shape is really adaptable, and so many different animals have tried to mimic this shape to be able to survive oceanic environments. I'm going to head off out of the camera and we'll go back to the sea. Chantal, so we get several different crab species here. So I'd say the most common is the Cape rock crab, which you find in the ocean and no bright orange. Yesterday we had a shore crab on the show, so they'll live in between the rock crevices. The other crabs that we get here would be really quite rare and you wouldn't find them very often. I believe that we get sponge crabs in these oceans here. I think they would be at deeper depths. And then there are a couple of hermit crab species that are found in the Cape, although hermit crabs, these are underwater hermit crab species. On tropical islands you would have hermit crabs that live above the water. And the bank cormorant is having a look up. You can see his little crest is starting to show. And what gave away that this is a bank cormorant was the eye. So this is a young bank cormorant. When they get older, their eyes become reddish with age. Well, it's not actually that young. I wasn't looking through my binoculars, but I can see that eyes are already changing color. What's very interesting to me is how this bank cormorant is splaying its tail as it preens. And like I said before, it's quite unusual for bank cormorants to sit here. We did have one here the other day, so I don't know if it's the same individual who just likes the spot. You can see he's cleaning out his feathers.
The Safari Guide of the Year 2022 is approaching us rapidly. This year, we'll be heading to Bushwise Field Guides at the Southern African Wildlife College from the 27th June till the 2nd of July. We will soon meet all our contestants who are vying for the prize of being the very best of the best, and the judges who will put them through their paces. Join me, Steve Falconbridge, as we dream it, guide it, win it.
If you would like to be a part of the team that shares the wildebeest migration in Kenya live on WildEarth, then we have some great news for you. There are a few places left to join our expeditions in August and September this year. You'll be staying in an exclusive tented camp with ensuite bedrooms nestled in the riverine woodlands of the Talek River. Head over to our website to book your bucket list experience today. WildEarth Expeditions. Travel with purpose.
So that is either little Flippy or Frodo sitting there. That's quite sad because we're very soon not going to have any chicks left in the Shire. But you can see that chick has very bluish feathers or very bluish tinge to it, and that's why we call the African penguin chicks at this stage baby blues. And I think that Flippy or Frodo has the right idea in hiding in that little crevice from the wind. And behind us we also have several chicks who are out of the nest at varying stages. Moonbeam Smith, so I think he is having a small nap, but the chicks have been moving around because when we arrived you could hardly see any penguin. So I'm hoping that they'll wake up for us and we'll get to spend a bit of time with our favorite chicks. We've got different chicks from at least 2 nests. One looks like he's making his way down the path. He looks quite angry, this chick. I don't know what he's looking for. Probably food. He's probably desperate for a bite to eat. And he's got a nice little collar and a fluffy tummy, but the back has got that same blue sheen as our chicks in the Shire. And this must actually be chicks from 4 nests, or from 3 nests at least here. But we're just going to see, because there's an adult penguin who's coming up the pathway. So I don't know if that's baby who's ready to be fed. Baby's running away, so maybe it's not. So Humphrey, I'm going to answer your question in just a second. I just want to watch what these chicks do because they are hungry. This is such a beautiful sight. So the chicks don't travel all that far, maybe a couple of meters from the nest at this stage. And what's very interesting to me is that we're not seeing any fledging at all. So I think the fledging happens early in the morning because you never see a juvenile walking or a blue walking down from the nesting area to the ocean to fledge in the middle of the day. You can see some of that really slimy, icky fish gut in the parent's mouth. This is so cool to see. What is interesting is how the chick was walking away from the nest, and when it saw its parent, it ran back and laid right next to the nest. I found that super, super fascinating. You just have a sea of flippers there.
Here at WildEarth, we promised great monthly prizes for our explorers, and this month is no exception. If you join our club before the 10th of July, then you stand a chance to win a fabulous Safari Guide online course brought to you by Bushwise Field Guides. They specialize in accredited safari guide training with courses tailored for the African safari lodge industry. Sign up to be a WildEarth explorer today and don't miss out on this life-changing opportunity.
And coming up in first place and officially named Mbilo is Heart's Cub.
Ruth, I think these penguins are trying to get munchies much more than cuddles. I think kids and dogs are very good at that. Where they pretend they want to love you, but they actually just want your food. This is such an amazing sighting. And these chicks are so insistent. This parent looks exhausted. I love how the chicks just splay their flippers like that. It's so cute. I think they do that for balance, actually. I'm so sorry. I think I went a little bit silent there. But we were watching our penguins enjoying some lunch. Marlene, they are such a joy to watch in their very smartly dressed clothes. You can see there's very little movement on the seashore at the moment. You've got 1 or 2 penguins coming in. There's a couple of them preening. But higher up on the shore, everybody's still trying to conserve heat. And today is the day where we have the longest night and the shortest day. I don't think the conditions could be more fitting, being so gloomy. Beach buddy, so that's a question, but it's not really a question if you know me, because common dolphin 100%. Because common dolphins, they travel so far, and just the way that their bodies move in the water, the things that they must see, being able to leap out the water, I couldn't think of anything better than being a common dolphin. I think I would have made a much better marine mammal than I am a terrestrial mammal. Oh, there's actually quite a few penguins who are coming back in all of a sudden. I think they got the memo that the sun's setting early tonight, so they're all coming in nice and early. Today is going to mark the start of longer days, and we've got lots to look forward to in the second half of the year. So we are going into whale season, and we have seen whales on the show, speaking of marine mammals, but because the conditions are, there's a tern. So I'm really hoping we can show you an Antarctic tern. And that's why Flippy has so kindly gone to have a look to see what he might be. He's already too far for me to catch him with binoculars.
We protect and reconnect nature across southern Africa. We bring countries together to care for wild spaces that stretch beyond borders. We protect and restore biodiversity. We prioritize the people living in these landscapes, enabling them to thrive in harmony with nature. We are restoring tomorrow.
Well, my name is Mark Carantonis, and I'm the co-owner of a travel company called Africa Direct, and I'm from White River in Mpumalanga, and I'm the founder of Safari Guide of the Year. It takes a lot of courage, to put your hand up and say I'm in, to put yourself forward and say I'm here to learn. It's not possible without them.
So this time of year we can get some seabirds that you wouldn't get at other. I actually think that is an Antarctic tern. Oh my goodness, I think we might have an Antarctic tern on this show, because he's supposed to have a white bum, but I'm looking at his headpiece, and his headpiece seems really really full and very dark. So if that is, I'm just going to see if I have my bird book. I think I might have actually left it, but I can confirm it for us tomorrow. I don't have my bird book with me right this second, but that would be so cool. It's very difficult for us to get that tern on the show in this wind, because as soon as we catch it, it moves out of frame. We've got penguins to watch, which are far easier because they cannot fly. We've got one penguin having a swim in the jacuzzi as the tide is actually running out. I was saying to Flippy before the show we had no swimming penguins. But we've got one little guy who's willing to brave these very sub-Antarctic conditions to have a nice bath. The jacuzzi really does whirl, creates a little bit of a water vortex. And I think for us, the thought of jumping into that water would be horrid on a day as cold as today. But penguins have lots of fat and lots of feather. They're very well insulated. And just like us, when you are moving about, you tend to be a lot warmer. So on days like today, we tend to want to be in bed and not move at all. But when we do move, we can generate our own heat. And penguins do much the same thing. Very dramatic scenes here down at Jacuzzi. Penguin, ooh, that penguin just behaved exactly like a surfer. He saw the wave coming in and he jumped into the wave to not be taken by it. Looks like he's disappeared for a little bit. Just want us to go have a look at the ocean quickly. I'm just going to take a wider view, and you would have noticed that there was a couple of days last week where we were seeing whales quite often. And in conditions like this, we haven't been seeing too many whales, so there's a couple of reasons for that. The one is that it's very hard to spot a blow and a moving whale when you have white water like this. So it's not impossible, but it's trickier because the blows get blown away, and we're usually looking for white water when we try to spot them. But we also find that in adverse conditions, whales tend to go deeper. And I have no scientific backing for this statement, just experience that tells me that. And so we are always looking out for whales for you. It's just a little bit more tricky in the conditions that we're seeing at the moment. I think we can go back to our penguins and have a look to see what interesting things we might be able to see. There's quite an interesting penguin. You see this penguin over here, Flippy? He's cleaning himself right now. He's cleaning his bum, but he's got really interesting spots. And that actually brings me to something that I keep forgetting to mention, is that Kathy Lee and Honey Badger managed to see on the show a penguin without any spots. So that was a few days ago when we had that question about penguins and spots. This penguin's got some really cool ones. So penguins can be completely spotless, as discovered by Honey Badger and Kathy Lee, which I thought is really awesome that you guys were able to actually identify that. And this penguin's got a very dappled chest, which is very interesting. You'll all be very glad to note that on Thursday, Byron is going to be back and joining you. It's just going to be for a day. Byron's been very busy, but he's so excited to be able to guide for you on Thursday.
My name is Michelle Duplessis, and I'm the Managing Director of the Field Guides Association of Southern Africa. I'm one of the judges this year, and I'll be judging the game drive category. as well as hospitality, professionalism and storytelling. I really look forward to seeing everybody again this year and obviously to meet the incredible contestants.
The Safari Guide of the Year 2022 is approaching us rapidly. This year, we'll be heading to Bushwise Field Guides at the Southern African Wildlife College from the 27th June till the 2nd of July. We will soon meet all our contestants who are vying for the prize of being the very best of the best, and the judges who will put them through their paces. Join me, Steve Falconbridge, as we dream it, guide it, win it.
So we're looking at a really beautiful penguin who's got mottling on its chest, but to me it almost looks like stars in the sky. So he's got some in the middle of his belly and then some towards the top right of his body. That's a very dashing penguin. I think if I was a female penguin, I would be interested in getting to know this penguin if it was a male. And so many of the birds are now coming back in, and I think they're going to be settling in for the day with their chicks. And I do think it's amazing as viewers how you guys pick up on all these individual birds and all these tiny differences. That we get to see. And the more time you spend in nature, the more adept you become at noticing different spots and different markings. When you first start, it feels almost impossible. And the longer you do it, the more you can look at an animal and think, oh, that's not something I've seen before. You can see we still have some water running down where the penguins are standing, so that's still a bit wet from all the rain we've been experiencing. I'm just going to see where this handsome fellow heads off to. Are we? I think we might have to make this a character. I feel like I want to give him a really cool, either a star name like Orion. I feel like we could call him Hercules. I thought about Dapple, but he's not dappled enough to justify it. I feel like that penguin needs a strong name. I realize that as we have the solstice here, and many of you sitting in the northern hemisphere are having your summer solstice, which is a lot warmer. So if you do celebrate midsummer, I hope that you have a fantastic one. Let's just see. All these penguins are now heading back into the nursery grounds. If you have a look around the nursery grounds, in the books they tell you that apparently penguin chicks form nurseries, but that's not something we can see here at all. So this is the nursing area, but we're not seeing lots of chicks all together. We see parents and babies. And you can see there's still a very fluffy baby in front of us now. Feels like The longer Flippy and I spend out here, the windier it becomes. You can see the nesting area is also very still. I think all the penguins are hiding from the cold inside their burrows, trying to stay nice and warm. Flippy has found the family we were watching earlier on. It looks like we've got some mutual preening happening here. Parents are making sure that the chicks look spick and span. And there are 3 chicks in that frame. I think the one is from another nest. He just looks like he's part of that nest. So penguins can have up to 3 eggs, but I don't think that this family have raised 3 chicks. I think it's just an optical illusion. It really is so beautiful to see the bonds between parents and chicks. And I wonder what the boys are getting up to on safari today. I see Liam's back. So we've just had a question that I've missed. I'm just going to ask our lovely director, Sammy, to just repeat it. So Todd, penguins need to protect their young from, at this age, very little, I think. When they are very young, when they have eggs, they need to protect their young from things like mongoose and kelp gulls. At this age, I think that they're fairly safe in the colony unless something like a leopard or a caracal had to come in. Otters can take eggs, and otters are known to kill larger animals, but I haven't seen too much about otters actually going after penguin chicks.
If you would like to be a part of the team that shares the wildebeest migration in Kenya live on WildEarth, then we have some great news for you. There are a few places left to join our expeditions in August and September this year. You'll be staying in an exclusive tented camp with ensuite bedrooms nestled in the riverine woodlands of the Talek River. Head over to our website to book your bucket list experience today. WildEarth Expeditions. Travel with purpose. Here at WildEarth, we promised great monthly prizes for our explorers, and this month is no exception. If you join our club before the 10th of July, then you stand a chance to win a fabulous Safari Guide online course brought to you by Bushwise Field Guides. They specialize in accredited Safari Guide training with courses tailored for the African safari lodge industry. Sign up to be a WildEarth explorer today and don't miss out on this life-changing opportunity.
So Flippy agrees with me, thinks that at this stage the penguins are fairly safe. And just before they fledge, we've got a Kelp Golf sitting right on the edge there with the penguins that we're watching. Something I find very interesting is that penguins on the mainland don't seem to struggle. We don't struggle with mice issues here. With a lot of island birds, if you introduce mice into the island, it causes quite a lot of trouble. And I think we're quite lucky in that penguins have been able to move to the mainland and have mice not be such a problem. Because most island birds are not used to predators, so when they are predators, they don't really know what to do. So Moonbeam Smith, penguins can see underwater, so they use their eyesight underwater when they are hunting. And so their eyes are specifically adapted to be able to see in quite dark conditions. And so they would swim with their eyes open, and they would also protect their eyes using a nictating membrane. We've just got some more penguins returning. It's good to see that they were able to find fish today and find fish fairly early. I'm hoping that if we're lucky, in our last couple of moments, we might be able to see one of the parents from the Shire come in.
And coming up in first place and officially named Mbilo is Heart's Cub.
Your trekking is very good. What is the starting trekking? Just trek to leopard. You walk a little bit, you stop. You keep starting checking. Keep your hands, your neck up. Okay, your eyes. Listen for the birds. You follow the leopard. The leopard should see you first. You lose. Not next year.
So we're very soon going to be sending you back to our safari team, and we'll see what Liam and Chris and James are going to get up to today. We hope that you've had a fantastic time with us down here over at a very cold Stony Point. Maybe the weather is slightly warmer up in Djuma. And you guys are going to be able to watch the sunset on the solstice, which is going to be lots of fun. I think tomorrow, if the weather's a bit warmer, Flippy and I might watch some dussies. We might see if we can find them for you. And I'd also like to see if we can track down bits of the shell midden here at Stony Point, and we can maybe talk about the people that used to live and travel through these areas many, many moons ago. I think if I was a sailor and sailed past this coast in these conditions all those years ago, I might not have wanted to make landfall. But I do love that we get to show you the Cape in all of her conditions. And I do think she is at her most beautiful when she's at her most wild. This today really gives you a taste of what the conditions are like here. But Flippy and I have had the most amazing day with you all today. So amazing to get to watch those chicks feed. So on behalf of Flippy and I, thank you so much for joining us. Thank you for spending your afternoon with us. Enjoy the rest of your day, and we're going to see you again tomorrow. Thank you so much, everyone.
This program features live coverage of an African safari and may include animal kills and carcasses. Viewer discretion is advised.